We're introducing 1, 2 and 3 John, written by the Apostle John, the disciple who Jesus loved and who was so close with him in that little tight-knit group around Jesus during his ministry. And the same John who wrote the Gospel of John. Now, if you read the Gospel of John and then you go to read 1, 2 and 3 John, you will recognise that a lot of the language is very similar. And there is a good reason that the Apostle John was known as the Apostle of Love. Of the 7 short chapters here in 1, 2 and 3 John, 20% of all the references to love in the New Testament are found. It's a tiny proportion of the New Testament, but he just doesn't stop talking about love. Isn't that something that we desperately need in Glasgow today? There are far too many people who do not know what love is, who have never been loved, who have, instead of being loved, been rejected, abandoned, not cared for in the way that they should. But this love is even more radical than the love that many of us have experienced in family situations or friendships who have been loved well. Because this love is the love of Father God, the love that has come to us through Jesus the Son. And John just takes time to let us enjoy the love of God and gets really deep into what does it mean to be loved by God, to love one another, to love in this world. Jerome was an early church father, and he said of John that he used to get carried into the church in Ephesus each day, and he would say the same thing: little children, love one another. Then one day someone said, "Hey, John, wouldn't you say something else?" And he said, "It is the Lord's command, and if it is all you do, it is enough." It's probably a myth, this story, but it does illustrate the character of John as you read through his writings. He's all about the love of God. And then how do we love one another, be this radical community of love as a church? Now, John uses emotive and affectionate language, and I just want to kind of point that out to you and say, when you read through this, don't miss that. Because I think sometimes we can detach ourselves from theology. So these are some of the most theological books in the New Testament. At the same time, they are full of affectionate language, and the two should hold together. These truths should give us these truths about who God is and how wonderful he is and what he's done for us and his glorious love for you. That should cause affection to rise up in us. It's not that we need to feel it, but we should desire to feel it. We should want to experience this. Know God. This is intimate. This is real. We should want that reality to be felt, not just believed. So look out for it. Now, John spends much of his time in these 3 books calling us to increased holiness and increased love, in contrast to sin and selfish ambition in the world. So through Jesus' removal of sin, the atonement, John reminds us, love the things of the Father, not the things of the world. And especially enjoy the Father's love for us and his love for the church. It's just this emphasis that he has that just constantly comes through. So if you want to be countercultural in this world, really be different, well, commit to each other. Commit to the family of the church. Commit to loving God and to loving people like he has loved you. Now, there is this kind of order to love that John shows us. Shows us that it doesn't begin with our love, doesn't begin with our acts, and us trying to be like saviors in the world. It's quite the opposite. We need to receive the love of the Father to know what real love is. And as he loves us, we can then love one another in the church. And then the church is to love in the world. But there's a flow to it. It's going to flow from God into his family, into his church, and then out from there. So the prayer that I have for us as a church as we read through this would be that we are filled with the love of the Father, and that it would overflow out of us to loving one another, and that would be this glorious witness to people around us of what true love is, and that then we would love others as we love one another and as we have been loved by God. It's also really clear on some of the dangers that are in front of us as a church. Like other New Testament books, John makes it really clear that there will be opposition, that there will be false teaching, that we should watch out for that, and that we shouldn't just allow it to go on. It's important for us to make sure that we are on guard and making sure that we continue to teach this gospel of love, this true gospel where Jesus is willing to lay down his life. John says, and this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he has loved us and sent his Son as a propitiation, a substitutionary atonement for our sin. Let me encourage you, see the love of God the Father as John describes, way beyond any worldly attempt at love. Be filled with that love and let it overflow out of you.